main speaker, Erin from Ojai.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, this is going to make more sense, that song, when you hear my story. Did you do that on purpose? Oh, God. All right, Erin, alcoholic. That's going to be funny later. Maybe. Anyway, thank you, Scott, for asking me to speak. And Kyle, thanks for being my 10-minute speaker. Thanks for my girls for coming with me. My sobriety date is March 22nd of 1995. So I just celebrated 30 years of sobriety. You guys helped me celebrate 30 years of sobriety. I guess a couple of things that are really important for you to know is that I didn't really feel like I was an alcoholic when I got here. I kind of caught alcoholism once I got here. And I definitely qualified for this program long before I got here. But I didn't arrive here thinking that I really belonged here. I wasn't ordered here by a judge. I really showed up because I really didn't have any, I knew that I was either going to die or I was going to give this thing a try, you know? And I was 25 years old when I got here, and I got sober in Tallahassee, Florida. And I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but it is the Bible Belt, and Jesus is in the meetings, and I had a big problem with that. And it's a miracle that I'm here, really, still, because I had a lot of baggage, particularly around the God thing. And so when I came into a meeting and I saw God in the steps, and then I heard that, I was like, I'm out of here. Like, this isn't going to work for me. I'm never going to believe that. I don't want to be in any place that would be talking about those kinds of things. And you know, I stayed. That was like the first miracle of my sobriety, is I stayed anyway, even though there was nothing here. You know, the median age of meetings when I got sober was 65, so I was pretty sure I was going to marry somebody on Social Security. I was not happy about that at all. Did not think that was a great idea. I didn't really see anybody that had what I wanted. They said, pick a sponsor that has what you want, and I looked around the room and was like, I'm so screwed. Like, I do not want. And, you know, a couple of people I was afraid I was going to catch something from. You know, I was not happy to be there. I did not feel at home. I wasn't a cuddly newcomer. I didn't like women. I didn't talk to women. I didn't have any women friends. I had one woman friend, and she got sober 2 months after I did, because she said after I left the bar scene, there was nobody else to beat up all of the creepy men, so she had to get sober too. And so she's still sober, so like May, she'll celebrate 30 years of sobriety too. So that's pretty cool. And she was with me on my last night of drinking, which we'll get to in a minute. So, you know, I didn't like it here, you know, and I had this therapist. How I arrived here was I had this therapist that I would go to every Monday, and she'd take out her therapeutic Scotch tape and tape me back together and send me out into the world, and I'd destroy my life for another week, and then I'd go back in and we'd get the therapeutic Scotch. Repeat, right? We keep doing that over and over again. And then one day I came into the room, this was probably like January of 95, and there was this pamphlet, this very insulting pamphlet on my chair. And I was like, what is that? And she's like, would you just read it for a second, and then we're going to talk about it. And I was like, I don't want to. And she's like, it's not really optional. Just please read it and let's talk about it. And it was the 20 questions, right? Like, it was like, you know, and I had like, I don't know, 17 of them, and I was lying about the other 3, right? Like and she's like, I think you have a problem with alcohol. And this was shocking to me. Like, I come from a long, like, alcoholism has hit every branch of my family tree. Even like the little skinny twig, they're drunks too, right? Like, it shouldn't have been a big surprise to me, really, at all, if you looked around my family. And, but I was offended. Like, I was super offended. I was like, I don't really think that's it. And she's like, no, I really do think that you're an alcoholic. And she's like, and I don't think if you don't do something about this, I can't keep taking your money. Like, you just keep coming in here and destroying your life, and I'm not really doing anything beneficial for you. And I was like, well, what do you want me to do? And she's like, well, I think you just need to go to a meeting. And I'd had this girlfriend who'd also been making the same ridiculous suggestion for like 2 years, right? And I was like, that seems really drastic. Like, it seems really like a lot of effort. And so I said, okay, right? And I didn't come to join Alcoholics Anonymous. I basically came because I was terrified that my therapist was going to fire me. And so, and I really knew that I wasn't going to last long if that happened. So I looked up the where and when back when it was in print, and we didn't have online back then. And I went to this meeting, and I picked this meeting that was at a mental health facility, because really what I really believed is that I was crazy, right? That was more palatable to me than being alcoholic. I would rather be nuts than alcoholic. And so I go to this meeting, and looking back now, it was probably a Cocaine Anonymous meeting or a Crack Anonymous meeting. It probably wasn't really an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And I'm kind of weird, like I really didn't do drugs. Like alcohol got me right where I wanted to go. So it was like the steady, reliable. I smoked some weed and took a lot of Vivarin and shit like that, but I didn't really do any of the other stuff. And so I go to this meeting, and it's this giant conference room, and there's this huge table that takes up the entire conference room. And so there's like this much space around the conference room table, right? And I make the very poor decision to sit on the opposite side of the door. And they start talking, and they start talking about Jesus, and they start talking about burning bushes, and they start talking about signs from God. And I am like going to spontaneously burst into flames, right? But the only way for me to get out of this room is to crawl underneath the table to get out the door, or across the top. And I wasn't going to do that, right? And so the program, even though I didn't come in for 2 months later, the program began to work for me that very first night, even though it was, so I'm sitting there the whole time. I don't know what else they talked about. I heard those 3 things, and I was like, I'm out. I took a little Erin vacation in my head to someplace else, and I waited till the end of the meeting, and then I got out of there. And as I was walking out, I'd parked my car under the streetlight, and it had gotten dark while I was in the meeting, and I walked out, and I was like, I am never going to one of those things again. And the street light above my car went out. And I was like, I had no spirituality whatsoever, but I was very superstitious. And I was like, oh, well, I think they have another one of these stupid meetings in like 15 minutes just right up the street. I guess I could go to that. And the street light came back on. I was like, whoa, like, that's really weird. And I went to that other meeting, and I didn't, I was just going to get bonus points with the therapist, like I don't know what they said. I wasn't joining. And I went back the next week, and I reported. I went to 2 meetings. And I don't belong there, thank you very much. I'm not an alcoholic. I've identified myself right out. And she's like, okay. She said, but I still have the same concerns. And so we go on for another couple months while I continue to burn my life to the ground. And, that last 2 months, that last 2 years of my drinking, I don't even know what to say about it. Like it's not like things just got so much worse. Like they just were it was just steady crap all the time. Like it was like a suicide mission every day that I kept failing at, right? Like every night I'd go out on the suicide mission, and I'd wake up the next day, and I'd think, oh, I'm still here, like I'm still here. And so, that last night of my drinking, it wasn't the worst night of my drinking. I know that I don't look like the story I'm about to tell you, but I want you to understand that, like, I can't stand up here and lie. It's one of the reasons why I hate speaking, because I'd much prefer to come up here and tell you this fancy story that doesn't relate to me at all. But I have to tell you the truth, right? Because I don't get to hold my seat here if I come in here and lie to you, right? So I was violent, right? Like I was violent, and I like to pick fights with men in bars, right? I like to pick a fight with the biggest man in the bar. My nose was broken 3 times last year of my drinking from barroom brawls that I started, right? There was a bar in Savannah, Georgia called Kevin Barry's. It's not there anymore. But my Polaroid picture was by the front door, and it said, "Don't let her in, she's fucking crazy," And because I had started so many fights. Like the police in Savannah would arrive and be like, really, again? And I'm like, sorry, like I don't know what you want from me, And so that was kind of where I was. And all the people that I was hanging out with thought that kind of behavior was completely acceptable, right? And so the last night of my drinking, I'd been on a 7-day St. Patrick's Day bender. I don't remember it. I do recall, I think I came to, and there was we were eating those street sausages. I can't even look at those or smell those to this day. It was gross. And so that I don't remember. We were in Savannah, Georgia, running around all the time. And then I arrived back to Tallahassee. And at the time, Tallahassee had this minor league hockey team. And my dad is he's from Chicago, big Blackhawks fan. I was the only child, and so he wanted a boy, and he got me. So I like have all of these weird things that I like that, you know, maybe some other women don't like. But anyway, I had to be like the resident boy in my family, and so I knew hockey. And so my dad and I went, and we made it to the playoffs, and we were drinking many beers at the hockey game, and then we made it to the playoffs. So there was like this big party at a bar, and I ran into all these people I bartended with, and everything was really great. And I blacked out, like completely blacked out. Like I was really a brownout drinker. Like I'd not really remember things, and the next day I'd like wake up and I'd kind of remember things, and I'd be like, oh, I said that to her, and that's not good. It's not good, and you know, those kinds of things. And then I blacked out, and apparently I started a fight with the ref. I thought that he'd made a bad call, and then he basically told me I didn't know what I was talking about, and then I proceeded to punch him in the face, and then the hockey players all jumped in, and then this huge thing erupted, and I came out of the blackout as the bouncer was pitching me down a flight of stairs, right? And I bounced as only the truly inebriated can, and then my girlfriend, the one that got sober a couple months after me, was leaving, and she's just like, I'm so tired of your shit. I'm so tired of this shit with you, you know? And I was like, you know, screw you, and I get in my car to drive drunk one more time, and I can't find my way out of the parking lot. There was like 7 exits, and I couldn't find one of them, right? And so I get in the cab with her, tried to pick up the cab. It's bad when the cab driver turns you down, right? Like, it's a bad night. It's a new kind of bottom, right? And I got to her house, and I called a whole bunch of people at like 3 a.m. that were not excited to hear from me. It wasn't a new thing. It wasn't the only night that I did that, but they were really getting sick of it. And I broke a whole bunch of crap, and I passed out, and I woke up the next day, and I had a black eye and a busted lip, and again, you know, I always had bruises everywhere that were unidentifiable from all of the stuff that I was just, you know, randomly falling into. And then they were driving me back to my car, and I was arguing with them, like where my car was. And I had that moment of clarity, right? Like in the back of this car being driven by this guy, Thomas, that had like blue hair and like piercings everywhere. And he was like, this is where your car is. And I was like, no, it's not. And then all of a sudden, this still, quiet voice said, Erin, how many times are you going to do the same thing and expect something different to happen? And I don't know why I heard that, but I did. And I blurted out, I'm going to go to AA today, you know? And they were like, right, sure you are. Sure, you're going to go to AA today. And so I drove home drunk one more time. I called in drunk to work one more time. And before I passed out that day, that girlfriend of mine that also had been 12-stepping me for like 2 years, I called her and I said, okay, Eve, I'm ready. I'm going to go to a meeting. Will you take me? And she said, no, I won't. She said, but I will meet you there. And she knew me well enough to know that as defiant and as hostile and as contrary as I was, that if she would have shown up at my house with a whole bunch of AA women, you guys would have another speaker tonight, because I would not have gotten in the car, right? I had to walk through that door on my own, right? I had to come with all my baggage and all my prejudice and all my stuff, and I had to come in and find a seat in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had to sit down. And it was a number of months that I was here. I really straddled the line for a long time. Like, I wasn't really sure I was an alcoholic. I took up lots of time in the meetings. I was a fan favorite, I'll tell you. I don't really know if I'm an alcoholic, you know, and there was this old codger named Jack. And, you know, every time I would share, he would say, like, I'd be like, well, I never got a DUI. And he'd be like, yet. And, like, he would say it every time. And I'd be like, well, I never got divorced. And he'd yell, yet. You know, and, you know, I was 25. And I actually, you know, was supposed to be married. And I called off that wedding 2 weeks before it happened. So I was, you know, divorce was on the horizon if I'd actually gone through the wedding, you know. So, you know, I arrived here and I didn't know that I was done. I had no intention of staying in Alcoholics Anonymous, but I was so terrified of what my life was going to look like if I went back out there, you know. Kyle talked about it a little bit. You know, alcohol was magic for me. Like, I felt like I needed a drink at like 6. If I could have started drinking in first grade, life would have gone much better for me, right? Like, I was just uncomfortable all of the time. And my dad was in the military, and we moved around a lot. And when I started high school, we were living overseas. And if you could reach the bodega, you could drink, right? And so I was at this football game, and we were all like going to go out and everything. And we left the football game, and like within the span of like 15 minutes, I smoked my first cigarette, had my first drink, and kissed my first boy. And I was like, this is the trifecta of happiness. I am taking this with me wherever I go, right? Like, I am going to do this forever. And like the next day, I like bought a carton of cigarettes and a fifth of Jack and called Rory. I'm like, what are you doing? And that was kind of like how it went, and I remember exactly how I felt before I had that first drink. And I felt awkward, I felt uncool, I felt like I didn't belong, I felt like I didn't fit in, I didn't feel like anybody liked me. I was so up in my head just chewed on me all the time, right? And Rory ordered a rum and Coke, and I was like, I will have a double, because I was not going to be outdone by Rory, right? And I knocked that back, and I felt instantly like my shoulders fell to where shoulders were supposed to be, I was like, I could breathe in and out without this tightness in my chest, I was like, oh my God, this is the solution that I have been looking for for 12 years, right? And for me, drinking was a lot of fun. I had a really good time. I was a bar drinker, party person. I was always out. I think I was addicted as much to the social life as I was the alcohol. And I did. I had a really good time for a long time. And then, just like our literature talks about, it wasn't so much fun anymore, right? And it was fun with some consequences, right? And then it was less fun with more consequences, right? And by the end, it was just instant wreckage. I just woke up every day, on the suicide mission that I'd failed at, and it was just like, this sucks, That marriage that I was supposed to have, I had this wonderful guy, and he was really my handler. That's why I got him, because I needed a handler, right? Because I was out of control all the time. And so he would apologize. He was a good Al-Anon, right? I know that now. I didn't know that then. But he would apologize, and he'd go behind, me and be like, she didn't really mean that, she's sorry, and I'm like, I'm not sorry, it was terrible, and he was a lovely human being. And I repaid that kindness by cheating on him, and then he forgave me. Who does that, right? And then I cheated on him again, because I was not ready to get married, but I didn't have maturity or words, or anything. I just had alcohol, right? And alcohol was the solution to all my problems, and so that imploded. 2 weeks before the wedding, and I just crawled in a bottle. And I would love to tell you that it was because I was so broken up about the horrible human being that I had become, but it wasn't. I was free. I crawled in the bottle because now my handler was out of the way, and I could have a good time, right? No more having to go home at 12. I could show up 3 days later. It was fine, and that's kind of how it was, and even at the very end of my drinking, there was nights that I'd be like, I'm gonna go shoot some pool and throw some darts, and I'll be home later. And sometimes that would happen. But as soon as I took that first drink, all bets were off. I didn't know. I didn't know when I was gonna come home. I didn't know who I was gonna come home with. My roommate did not like me. I had to make amends to her. It took 5 years for her to take my call, because I would empty out the bar. And I didn't hang out in nice places. I wasn't hanging out at the Ritz. I was hanging out in smelly, disgusting, smoke-ridden pool halls, right? With the other derelicts that were there, right? And so she would wake up and have to go to class in the morning, because we were in graduate school together, and I would have the remnants. And there'd be people passed out on the couch, and this couch caught on fire twice, and it was just a nightmare, right? And that's kind of where it was, until I got here. And after I got here, they assigned me my first sponsor. They knew I wasn't going to ask anybody, and so they just decided. They're like, "Hi, Erin, this is Liz. She's going to be your temporary sponsor." And I didn't really want to talk to Liz, and I didn't call her very often. But then one night I heard this woman speak, and they said, find a sponsor who has, what you want. And she had really nice clothes and really nice car, and she was a partner in a law firm. And I was like, I want her, I want her, because that's who I was, right? That's what I cared about. I cared about what the outside looked like. The inside was rotting. I didn't care about that. I cared about how I looked on the outside, right? And so she just happened to be this very spiritual person in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was a little bit afraid of her. And she said to me, she's like, you will meet me at the Chinese food restaurant on West Tennessee Street at noon sharp. Bring your big book. I'm like, yes, ma'am. And I showed up there, and we worked the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I am forever grateful for Betsy to this day. And she's still sober, and we still talk, and she saved my life. And I used to, once I finally kind of got both feet into the program and stopped kind of having the debate in my head of whether or not I belonged here, I would follow her to the car in the parking lot, and I'd be like, Betsy, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't know how I'm ever going to repay you, because I still had that bar economy. Like, you didn't take anything if you didn't, you knew you had to give it back, right? And I felt so like imbalanced that she had given this stuff to me for fun and for free, and I felt like I had to pay her back. And, she looked at me one day and she goes, would you please stop it? She's like, you are never going to repay me. She's like, your job is to get sober and stay sober and help the people that are coming up around you. She's like, that's how this works. And I just can remember thinking, like, it can't be like that. It just can't. Like, it can't be that simple. Nobody does anything for fun and for free. I mean, for fun, yeah, but for free, no, right? There's always a price tag, right? And that just hasn't been my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. Like, there's a number of things that happened in that first year of sobriety that are responsible for me still being here. Like, I don't know about you, and to all the people that are new, welcome. Like, that first year was the best, worst year of my life. It was the best because it fundamentally altered and rearranged who Erin was, right? And it was the worst because, like, I was really committed to living the way that I was living, right? And I really did not know what to do once I got here, I got busy in the steps. I started going to more meetings. I started, not sitting, no offense to the guys back there, but on death row, that's what we called it in my home group, I sat right next to the door because I was never going to make the mistake of not being able to exit a meeting if I needed to. There's a couple things that happened. So there was when I don't know, I had like 90 days or something like that, and there was this lady, and she was celebrating 7 years of sobriety. And I just couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that anybody could be sober 7 years. I just thought she was lying. And so I sat in the back on death row, and I picked apart her story. I'm like, she said Tuesday, then she said Wednesday. She's such a liar, and she was like wearing yellow, and I hated yellow, and I hated her, right? And they'd all been out to dinner, and people had brought her gifts and flowers, and I hated her, right? And Bobby, her name was Bobby, and like, I don't know, maybe 60 days later, I go to that meeting, and she's sitting drunk, crying in the back of the room. And as I walked past her and smelled the off-gassing, I was like, oh my God, I have more time than she does. Just like that. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, that changed everything for me that night, right? Everything changed because I saw how precious this gift was, right? Like how I could alter it in a minute, And then I never saw Bobby again for like 20 years. And I tell people, and I go back, to Tallahassee, and I'd be like, remember Bobby? Like, she had a really low body. Remember, and she like had 7 years, and then she went back, and everyone would look at me like I was crazy. And I was like, oh my God, I was hallucinating. Like, I didn't even know, right? And on my 20-year birthday, I happened to be in Tallahassee, and I go to the meeting, and there's Bobby, right? And she's celebrating 19 years of sobriety, right? And I walked up to her after that, and I said, I don't know what that relapse did for you, but your relapse saved my life, and I'm so grateful to you. And she's like, oh, honey, we had a moment, right? And so that fundamentally changed kind of how I showed up. The other thing that happened is, I had to get clear on the whole God thing, right? Like I did not. I was kind of raised by heathens. My parents, God was a bad word in our household. Nobody uttered it. My dad was an Army colonel, and, you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps, God damn it, and that was just how he was. And that's how I was raised, and so the fact that I would have to rely on some power that I could not see, that I could not touch, that I could not prove existed was just so beyond me. Like, I just didn't have the capabilities of understanding what that was like. And as if you've gone to a lot of meetings, you'll find it's always that person in the meeting that you can't stand that saves your life, right? Like, and there was this guy, his name was Bob, and he would share multiple times in the meeting, which I hate, and I still hate. Double dipping, not a fan. And so he would share, and he would say, hi, my name's Bob. I came to AA to get sober, and I found God that changed my life. And I would stab Bob in my head, and I ran him over with my car in the parking lot a number of times, and like sometimes I'd jump up and slit his throat in the meeting. Like, I fucking hated Bob, right? And I could not stand him because what he was saying was so uncomfortable to me, right? Like, it was so uncomfortable, like that I was going to have to find a God that I could do business with. Like, that was bad news. I was not excited about it, right? And but that's exactly what happened, right? Like, I came to AA to get sober, and I found a God that I could do business with, right? My child is calling. And, and I've stayed sober, right? And now today, like, I can't imagine going for 5 minutes without my higher power. Like, not 5 minutes. We are in constant communication. And I run every decision by. And when I don't, I get consequences that I don't like immediately, right? Like, it doesn't take me very long after the time that I've been here to have self-will run riot, pull me up short, and cause pain. And it's not even about the pain, right? I don't know about any of you guys, but like for me, like if you looked at the way that I lived my life before I got into AA, and even after I've been in AA, you would say, she kind of likes it. She kind of likes the pain. Like, look at her creating more pain. Like, I'm a manufacturer of self-created pain, right? And but what I really can't stand is being uncomfortable. I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want it to be too hot. I don't want it to be too cold. I don't want my sweater to be itchy, right? Like, I don't like scratchy sheets. I don't want a rough towel. Like, I do not like to be uncomfortable, especially emotionally, right? And alcohol was the thing that just took that away immediately, right? And although I just, the sweet spot always moved, right? I could never find it again. Like, I was chasing that high that I felt that night with Rory for the rest of my time, right? I never hit it again. I never, ever found it again. So, I had to kind of come to terms with this whole, how much time do I have left? An hour? Oh, good. Oh, you poor people. Okay, well, anyway. So I had to find a God that I could do business with, right? And my sponsor was a very practical person. We started off my steps, and she would tell me things like, you can't be mad at a God you don't believe in. What? But I am. And she's like, well, then you believe in something, right? You have to believe in something if you're this upset about it, And I began to work the steps, and I don't even know exactly where it all changed for me. I know Bob had something to do with it, God bless him. He's gone to the big meeting in the sky. But anyway, he also saved my life, right? And so, what evolved over the next 30 years is that I did find this power that was greater than myself that I could turn over all my problems to, that I could talk to, that I could run things by, And today, like, I'm one of those people, I'm an all the things girl. Like, I've been sober a long time. I still go to meetings. I still sponsor. I'm still sponsored. I do a 10th and 11th step every single day. I know that sounds like a lie, but it's not. I get up every day. I write 12 things that I'm grateful for. I write 5 things I need to be in acceptance of, and I write 2 prayers every day, right? And I do my 10th and 11th step every day, right? And I don't know which one of the things is responsible for this amazing life that you people gave me, that you guys had to convince me that I wanted, right? Because I was like sitting on death row going, I don't buy it. I'm not buying it, right? And so, I believe that I still have to do all the same things that I did when I got here, right? I love Alcoholics Anonymous for the fact that when I need 27 meetings in a week, I can get that. Right? And the times when my life is just going gangbusters and I can only make it to maybe 2 or 3, that's okay too, right? Alcoholics Anonymous is whatever I need, whenever I need it, right? And it's kind of like the garbage in, garbage out. I get out of AA what I put into it, right? And I love how Kyle talks about, like, the best thing that's ever happened to me is being able to, like, meaningfully participate in my own life and in the lives of others, right? Sponsoring somebody else and helping them is like the best thing. I mean, my sponsees call me and, we are laughing and crying, often in the same phone call, right? And it is such an honor for somebody else to bring me, the manufacturer of pain and misery, right, their pain and misery, and help them use the steps to transform that into something other than what they've got, right? And then watch them do it with other people, right? It's just this amazing thing, right? I'm pretty sure that my higher power doesn't look like anybody else's, and that's just fine. And I am so grateful that Alcoholics Anonymous has the traditions that allowed somebody like me with all my God baggage and all my prejudice and everything else to have the doors wide enough for me to get through it and to be able to come in and sit down and to evolve, right? And I feel like the steps are what help us get rid of all of the defects of character that stand in our way of being useful to other people, right? And so I got to continue to do this because, I have a brain that forgets. I do everything alcoholically still, right? To some degree, if you looked at my sobriety, you'd be like, she just changed one addiction for another. Yeah, that's true. I really have. I mean, don't take me shopping, Like, I can't go there. Like, do not go out with me shopping, you know? It's not. I'm off the shopping right now. You know, don't put chocolate in front of me. I have no control, like none control, right? So the gym, I'll be there, you know, 2.5 hours, right? Like, I do everything still alcoholically. But chances are, shopping and chocolate in the gym are not going to kill me, right? And they don't make me do reprehensible things, right? They don't make me cheat on fiancés. They don't make me do all of the pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization that I was doing before I got to AA, you know? My first sponsor also used to tell me often, she's like, Erin, if you're not an example, you're a warning. I have been a warning a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous. I am sure that there are many people, some of them may be here tonight, that be like, don't be like her. You know, it's service nonetheless. I stand by that, right? Like, it's service nonetheless. You know, so I have to do the work to keep the channel clear so that I can carry the message, because otherwise I'm getting it all garbled, right? Like, I'm carrying Erin's program, and nobody wants that. No, not even Erin. Like, I don't even want that, right? And so today, like, I am so honored to have the life that I have, you know, and I'm a big believer in our literature, and, you know, that we have a chapter that's called, you know, The Family Afterward. And, you know, I got sober, and then 2 months later, my mom got sober, and then 8 years later, my dad got sober, right? And it was rough, because out of all of us, he probably needed it the most, right? Because I take his inventory a lot. And he and I did not have a good relationship, you know, like, the poor guy, like, you know, and that, you guys gave me my dad, right? Because when I came in here, he was problem number one, right? Like, I could not stand that man. He used to go away on, like, TDYs and stuff like that, and I would literally be, the God that I didn't believe in, I'd be like, can you just kill him? Can you just take him? Just, like, make him not come home. And I'd sit at the dinner table and say horrible things like, why don't you guys get divorced? Like, all my friends' people are getting divorced. Why can't you guys get divorced? I want to go live with mom. Like, and, you know, and he had his issues. Like, there was good reasons that I felt that way about that man. But also, you know, I had my own stuff going on, right? And now, you know, I look at my dad, and he really did the best he could, you know? He grew up in an alcoholic home. He, you know, combat veteran, Vietnam. You know, he came back not the same guy that left, right? And when he left, I was like 3 weeks old. When he got home, I was a year and a half, and I was running everyone's life, right, at year and a half. Like, my grandparents wrapped around my finger, my mom wrapped around my finger, and my dad came back and was like, huh? Like, no, we're not doing this, and began the battle of wills. And then, you know, I became vegetarian at 13 just to piss him off, right? Like, I'm still vegetarian all these years later just to piss him off. No, I'm just kidding. No. It's become a thing for me, not just to make my dad mad anymore. But we would have these epic battles, right? These epic battles of will, right? And my poor mom, the Al-Anon, like, caught in the middle, right? Like, she just ended up running from the dinner table crying all the time. And I don't know why it was the dinner table, but that's where all of our stuff went down, you know. And I hated him. I hated him so much, you know. But I came into the program, and I had 8 years of sobriety of working through my stuff and having to make amends. And I'll tell you what, you know, when it came time to make amends to my parents, my mom was a lot easier. She and I have always been pretty tight because we were aligned against my dad, you know. Very toxic, Al-Anonic, you know, family disease. So we were on this vacation in Florida, and the man did not draw a sober breath. So, like, finding him sober was really, really tough. And so, like, he was drinking in the hot tub one night at the hotel, and I was like, well, it's now or never, you know. And I started off with, you know, I'm really sorry that I wasn't a more kind and loving daughter to you. And he said, yeah. And another thing, you know, it did not go well. But I didn't drown him. He's still living. So, you know, it was fine. And, you know, and I worked the steps. You know, I made the amends. I did the things. And, you know, I saved a seat in every meeting that I went to for my dad. Every meeting I'd walk in and I'd be like, that chair's for my dad. Because I knew that I could not 12-step him. We did not get along. We did not see eye to eye about mostly anything. And so if I tried to, you know, to 12-step him, I would kill him, right? And I knew that. And I had to be an example of what this program was, and I had to keep my mouth shut, which is not easy for me, right? And you know, he finally hit bottom. We went on this horrible family vacation. It was in the Bahamas. And just to set the stage, like, we get off this little boat. It's like this island. There's no cars. And my dad is hammered. Like, he almost falls in the water on the dock. And then he runs into this bar, and he's like a little guy. Like, he's like not a big man. And he runs into this bar and changes shirts with this Bahamian man that's like 17, stories tall. And they change shirts. And so, like, the Bahamian guy looks like the Incredible Hulk, right? Because he's like busting out of my dad's shirt. And my dad looks like he's like 12 because he's like running around in like this guy's shirt. And that's how the vacation started, right? And on that vacation, my mom and I would get up every morning and go for a walk, and we'd talk about my dad, right? And what a drunk he was, and how sorry we were for him. And she said the thing, right? She goes, "I'm gonna leave him," and I was like, doing the math in my head. I'm like, I'm an only child. That means he's going to become my problem. And all of a sudden, what I'd been praying for since I was a little kid, I was like, you can't leave him. He's going to be my problem. We're going to kill each other. This is never going to work, I just thought that. I didn't say that to her. I was actually very supportive, and I was like, Mom, you got to do what you got to do, right? And so we got back from that trip, and my dad drank himself stupid again on New Year's Eve, and then the next day, my mom had a letter for him on the bar at their house, and not the bar, but like the kitchen bar. And she slid it over to him, and he's like, what's this? And she goes, just read it, please. And he read the letter, and she basically said, I love you, and I cannot watch you kill yourself. I watched my brother drink himself to death 2 years ago. I watched my sister drink herself to death for 20 years. She's like, I will not watch you kill yourself. And he, my dad, in my complete dad fashion, he's like, what do you want me to do about it, You guys can picture my childhood, right? It was great. And so anyway, and my mom's like, go to a fucking meeting. And he's like, well, I don't know where they are. And she's like, it's like down the street, And so my dad went to that meeting, and he's been sober to this day, And he has dementia now, and he doesn't go to meetings anymore. And he's, we're losing more and more of him every single day. And he's actually really nice. Dementia kind of gave me a really nice dad, which is kind of messed up, but I'm grateful for it, right? Like, he still remembers who we are, and he's really sweet, and he's happy to see me, and we don't battle heads anymore. I'm sorry that it took dementia for us to get along, but but the program changed things, right? And he got a really good sponsor. And I'll tell you what, that man was the best newcomer worker. I mean, he would see them in the meeting, and he would beeline it for them afterwards. And he'd be like, let's go get a cup of coffee, And the guy's not even capable of holding a quarter cup of coffee in a cup, because he's just shaking so bad. And he'd put him in his car, and he'd take him off and give him a big book. And that guy would be like, have a service position the next week, right? Like, he was an amazing newcomer worker, right? And did so much service in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got to see that, right? And then it came time for my dad to do his amends, right? And I was terrified, right? Like, because I was like, the moment of truth, right? Like, this is going to be big. This is going to be really big. And so I was over at their house one day, and he was making a ham sandwich, and I was judging him silently. So he's over there making the sandwich, and he's like, I'm on my amends. And I was like, okay, cool, that's great. And he's like, so yeah, I gotta make amends to you. And I was like, and I'm like holding on to that bar, like, I'm like, oh my God, here it comes. Like, all my life I've waited for this. And he goes, we're good, right? And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I'm like, and in my head, it was like a movie that it was like, and when he did this, and when he did this. And then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, Dad, we're good. And I'd love to tell you that I haven't been resentful about that, but that would be a lie, because I've taken that back a number of times. But in the moment, I behaved appropriately, right? And he made the kind of amends that he could make, right? And I met him where he was, right? And the police almost never come to family gatherings anymore. He doesn't wander, so it's good. We don't have to send the police out looking for him anymore. And Alcoholics Anonymous gave me my family, like, not back. Like, you guys gave me my family, right? Like, I didn't really have a family. I didn't appreciate them. They were there for rides and cash. That's who I was. That's what I cared about, right? And today, I have a great relationship with both my parents, and we get to share this fellowship together, right? My mom, is kind of one of those people where she doesn't drink anymore, but she kind of was like, I wasn't really sure if the alcohol was controlling me or if I was controlling the alcohol, so I just stopped. And I'm like, kind of defined yourself right out of AA, Mom, so Al-Anon her primary program, but, has brought so much healing, to our family, and I've gotten married in this program. I got divorced in this program. He actually still speaks to me. No crimes were committed. Part of my amends to mankind was to not cheat anymore, and that was. I was able to leave that marriage, and when I wanted the divorce, I said to my sponsor, I said, I can't do this anymore. Like, I don't love him. I can't do this anymore. And she's like, well, how do you want to handle this? And I said, I want to handle it with grace and dignity. And she's like, oh, the high road. She's like, this is going to be fun, And during that process, we got into a heated debate one day, and I called him a name that I won't repeat here, and I hung up. And I happened to be standing in the bathroom when I did that. And there I was looking myself right in the mirror. And it took me 10 minutes of intensive self-talk to be like, you need to call back and apologize right now. And I was like, but I don't want to. And he was being that name, and it took me 10 minutes, and I called him back. And I said, I am really sorry that I swore at you. You're the father of my children, and you deserve respect. And I won't ever do that again. And I'm very sorry. And he was like, I don't know, he said something snarky, and then we hung up. But later that night, he texted me, and he said, thank you for doing that, because I never would have, and we had a decent divorce. Like, it wasn't great. I feel terrible for my kids. They would have been much happier if we would have stayed together. Their lives were kind of drastically altered. They had, I got to move back to California with the kids, and he moved to Texas, his choice, but my kids suffered for it, But they've gotten to see their mom be sober and walk through all of that stuff, and I've gotten to show up for those kids, My son has struggled with this disease, and he's currently still struggling, right? And, I've had to, sit and not 12-step him either, but I've gotten to be a sober mom, I had a dog when I was drinking, and I used to joke, and it wasn't really a joke, that she belonged in adult canines of alcoholics, because, like, she literally exhibited all of the signs of an adult child, like, because of being raised by me as an active drunk, right? And I know for sure that my kids would have grown up really badly had I been drinking, right? And it was funny, my daughter, I don't know, maybe it was like last summer or something, she goes, Mom, it would be really fun if you could just, like, get stoned with me and my friends in the backyard, like, build a bonfire. I was like, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be so good. And she's like, really? And I go, yeah, it'd be great, until I decided that the buzz wasn't big enough, and so that I needed to go to the liquor store, and I was just going to pick up 1/5 of Jack, and then I'd meet some guy at the liquor store, and then I'd be gone to, like, Tucson for, like, 6 months, and then we'd lose the house, and I'd lose my job, and then you'd have to go live with your dad in Texas. And the kid's face just, like, fell. Like, she's like, never mind, like. And then she looked at me later, a couple days later, and she goes, do you really think it would be like that? I go, I know it would be like that. And I said, and she's like, really? And I go, yeah, because I don't want one. I don't want one. I never wanted one. I want 1,000, right? And one is too many, and 1,000 is never enough, right? And so I know absolutely today that I am just as big a drunk as I was the day that I walked in here, you guys have just given me this life that, is beyond anything that I could have possibly ever, come up with on my own, I've walked through so many things in sobriety that I couldn't handle anything when I was drinking, I was such a mess. And today, like, I'm not so messy anymore, and I've gotten to be, a worker among workers. I've gotten to, be a friend, like, learn what that's about. I can remember that girlfriend that I got sober with. We used to go to the Village Inn, like, the day after, with our hangovers, and, like, eat French fries and stuff and Coke. And we would talk at each other. Like, she would tell me all of her drama, and I'd tell her all of my drama. There was no exchange of information. There was no intimacy. There was no care and concern. It was just like both of us verbally vomiting all over each other, and there was no love there, right? because I wasn't capable of that. And I'm going to end with this. Like, I read this quote today, and I think it's really important, and it's kind of like where I am in my sobriety, because, like, I don't know about any of you guys, but relationships are the final frontier for me, right? Like, still have a hard time in that department, right? And this quote that I read today was, it said, you cannot have deeper intimacy, or you cannot connect on a deeper level with somebody who is disconnected from themselves. And I think about that, and that's what everybody in my life was doing before I got here. I was completely disassociated. And I'd love to tell you that, like, you guys plugged me in right away and I got all reconnected to Erin and everything was great. That probably didn't happen for me until about 20 years, right? Like, and that's kind of bad news for all of you, but everybody's got an individual program, right? So I'm just on the slow learner bus, right? Like, as far as that's concerned. But, like, that was so revolutionary for me to think, like, that's kind of what I've been trying to do, right? Like, all my life, I was disconnected to myself, trying to get connected to you guys, right? And to me, addiction is disconnection, right? That's what happens in my brain, in my alcoholic brain is, you know how I can get closer to people? Don't talk to them. Do you know how I can get closer to people? Don't show up to things. Do you know how I can get closer to people? Act like they don't matter to you, right? This makes sense in my brain, right? It doesn't make sense, right? Like, the opposite of addiction to me is connection, right? Like, and that's what I want in my life today, And my life today, the circle of people is so much smaller than it's ever been, but those people know that they matter to me, and I know that I matter to them. And if I have a problem, my ego isn't all involved. I call them and I tell them the truth, right? And I show up in places like this and I do my level best to tell you exactly who I am, flaws and all, right? Like, I would love to tell you that the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous have rendered me, like, perfect. That's far from true, and it's never going to be the case, right? But I get a daily reprieve to show up here every day, over and over and over again, and watch this, like, miracle of my life just show up, right? Like, and all these things, just strange things happen. Like, just weird crap, like, completely bizarre things. Like, I was sitting working in my office in my home, and my son texts me and says, it's like, I don't know if you guys have teenagers, but it's like, Mom. That could mean, like, the world is ending, or it could mean, like, they have a hangnail, right? You just don't know which one it's going to be. Mom, it's an emergency, it's an emergency, it's an emergency. And I'm like, what? Question mark, question mark. And he's like, we found ducklings. And I'm like, what? And he's like, we found ducklings in the road. So, like, now I have ducklings, right? Like, I did not see that happening on Thursday morning. I did not wake up thinking, I really hope God gives me ducklings today. But I now have ducklings. So anyway, if anybody wants them, you can see me after the meeting. If you're new, right, you earned your seat. I've never seen anybody in the time that I've been here get here by mistake, right? And it is a privilege for all of us to watch you catch on fire about Alcoholics Anonymous, and then watch you carry that message to other people. So, take your turn. I took mine, I earned that chair, and I don't intend to give it up. Thanks. Yeah.